Alrighty, so I think it's time to show off some more of what I've been doing. Today, I can unveil the REM2. So, as you'll notice, it looks pretty similar, except for the big 2. So I finally got the boards in, and I got to build some, and dude, these things are awesome. But if you guys want to try some of these prototypes out, I'm really happy with these REM2s so far. I'm really happy. These have a lot of potential, and so far I feel like I've got a lot of the bugs figured out. I've got 20 boards of the prototypes that I want to test. So if you are interested in one of these, let me know. The best place to reach me is on Facebook. That's the best place for me to keep track of everyone, because there's a lot of people that talk to me. So it's a lot easier when I can put tags on everyone and keep y'all in chat. So yeah, if you want to order these, if no one else grabs pre-orders, I think there's still about 9 or 8 boards left. If no one else decides to pre-order in the next week, then I'm just going to sell them on Etsy, and I'll let you know. I'll make a separate video of the exact time and date that I'm going to sell these. They're going to go for $99 before mods. We've got $5 upgrade if you want me to solder on one of the micro SD slots. It's going to be, I think, $10 for Bluetooth and $15 for the gyroscope. And that's all separate, by the way. And if you want the fancy adapter with the stuff in there, it'll be $5 extra. And if you want transistors and diodes in there, so you want to control things instead of read voltages, let me know, and I can set them up. So it'll be more of a personal thing, so just talk to me with what you want, and we can get you figured out. So yeah, if you want to pre-order, I've got these just about ready to go, so I'm going to send a couple of these out on Monday, and hopefully they go well. So I'm excited to see how the V4 hardware is working. Okay, one more thing that people are a little confused about that I want to go over is what the V4s and the 2s and all that stuff means. So, if you look at this, the version numbers are really just for me. That makes it easier for me to track, so you can see, how the stages have progressed. So we have our version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4 hardware. So that is the stuff, that's the circuit board, that's the business, that's all the latest thing, And then the actual unit, like we have our REM Alpha, our REM Beta, our REM Plus, and our REM2. So the V4 and the REM2 are the same thing. The REM2 uses version 4 hardware. So for instance, this clock uses V3 hardware. It's just the V3.1 because it has 2.5 liter support, kind of. It's got the hardware, but you need to upload the software, which I talked about before. So what my plan is, if these prototypes work, okay, and they work well, there's not really any issues, and we kind of got everything figured out, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to order more of these, okay, so I'm going to have a lot more of the regular style, the regular REM2s, and then I'm also going to make the version 4 hardware into the clock, so you can get an REM2 clock as well, okay, so both of these will run on version 4 hardware, they'll use the same software, and it'll be easy, so you can pick whatever you want. You can have a clock, or you can have one of these. Problem is, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks from me ordering the board to me getting the board. So it's going to be at least a month before these are ready. I just want to, mention that. But, yeah. Version 4 is going to be the big kahunas. I'm super excited. So once these get sent out and get tested, because I know something's going to go wrong, because everything always goes wrong when someone else uses it. It's just how this shit works. So, yeah, once these get debugged and I find out the issues and I fix the issues, then we can get all the stuff rolling. I'm sorry this has taken so long, but it's going to be worth it. I promise you. These things are incredible. Oh, I love them. It's so great to be able to do all the stuff on here, but it takes a while. Hopefully by the fall, I'll be able to just order, 100 of each board and just start selling them. I want to be able to have stuff in stock. I don't want to do these stupid sales anymore. I just want to have stuff in stock so you can buy them whenever you want. So I'm getting there. I'm really trying. It's a lot of effort, but we're getting there. So check out that beautiful board, eh? So now we're rocking a teensy 3.2 over here, which is like ridiculously powerful. I was supposed to have micro SD card slots, but apparently the footprint that I had was the wrong footprint. I should really, really, really learn to buy one and make sure that the damn thing fits before I send out an order, but whatever. You know, we've got an external voltage regulator. We've got all kinds of pins broken out, so we have all our power pins. We've got our extra jack pins. And we've got some jumpers down here, which actually connect to the Arduino, so this should make adding new lines or readings or controlling stuff a lot easier. So since the SD card has to mount up here, I'm asking people which ones they want for these prototypes. I've got 20 of these boards set up, and you can either get them plain, you can get a micro SD card, or you could get yourself a Bluetooth module or a gyroscope. So the gyroscope will fit on either version, that's fine, but you can only have the Bluetooth or the SD card. So the Bluetooth is going to send data to Android phones. It's really hard to make iPhone apps and get them approved in the store and all that, so I don't think they'll be supported for a very, very long time, if ever. But right now I'm talking to the guy, I think his name is Lucio or something. Hopefully I'm not messing up that name. He wrote a little app that I showed off in the last video. I can show it again. But it's going to be a third-party supported app for now. I don't know if I'm going to ever write my own, but I don't know, this looks pretty cool. So if he can get a good working version out there, then yeah, that's going to be pretty sweet. The gyroscope, I'm not too sure about. It's not quite what I was expecting. The readings aren't broken out the way that I thought they would be. So there's one more thing I can check, which is some software calibrating things. Right now I'm basically reading the 3 separate chips on there, or the 3 separate readings. But we've got an accelerometer, a gyroscope, and a magnetometer for like magnetic readings. So what I was hoping for was to have a compass and a tilt, like an inclinoscope or whatever, and stuff like that, and an acceleration thing. But the problem is they're not quite broken out how I thought they'd be. Okay, so here are the 3 readings that we can have. We have our roll over here for our gyroscope. We have our accelerometer over here, and we have our magnetic stuff. So this wasn't quite what I was expecting it to be. So if we tilt it, you can see if it's tilting, you know, however far left or however far right, and it's got an arrow pointing in the direction that it's going, because I didn't really want negative numbers, so I figured that's kind of cool. And same for the other reading, so you can see how far forward or backwards you can tilt. And when I add some more options, I'll add an option to zero it out, so that however it's sitting in your vehicle, you can zero it. But there's a bit of a side effect here that I wasn't expecting. So I thought that the roll sensor was going to be separate from the accelerometer, but that reading there is the accelerometer. So what it's doing is it's measuring the gravity of the Earth as sort of an acceleration, I guess, which is kind of dumb. The thing on the left is roll. So if I spin this back and forth, you can see like that right number is moving. It measures the rolling acceleration. So maybe if you can take the left numbers and subtract them from the right, then you can subtract the acceleration from the roll, so you can get an absolute roll versus an acceleration. This is getting into the parts of high school that I wish I was able to take. So like for instance, you see that when I go forward and backwards, that left number is moving. It only measures the rolling acceleration, and I don't have a use for rolling acceleration. I want like forward and backwards. Only problem is the gauge on the right is going to be dual purpose, so if you floor it, the numbers on the right are also going to move. Even if the vehicle isn't rolling in a particular way, it will still change. So let's see if I can hold you both together. So even if I hold this perfectly still and move it left and right, you can see that the number also changes because it's measuring the acceleration. And yeah, so it's not quite... I gotta check some math. It's obnoxious. This isn't quite what I was expecting, and obviously I should have did some more serious testing before I decided to incorporate it into the design as an option, but it's kind of hard to mess with this stuff until it's all together. So anyway, now the bottom left one is compass, sort of, and when you rotate, it does change, but sometimes in the car it's different. I know that it has to be calibrated through some software and other weird crap. So I don't know. There's a lot of looking into for this, but it's a lot more complicated than I was hoping for. But anyway, that's the gyroscope in a nutshell. A lot of crap. So here's the big long list of comparisons and stuff like this. I'm just going to put a screenshot on so it's easy to read. So you can see the differences between the four models that I've had, the Alpha, the Beta, the REM Plus, and the REM2. The REM2 is able to read 2.5 liter manual transmissions, so that is built in. We don't have to switch software back and forth, because that was the issue with the V3. I didn't have enough room to fit 2.5 liter in there, so you had to install the 4.0 or the 2.5 liter program. But with this, it's baked right on in, which is awesome. So let me show you. So if we come down yonder into options and vehicle, now we can choose the engine and the transmission. But I don't have support for 2.5 liter automatics yet, so yeah, if anyone has a 2.5 liter auto and they want to send me an ECU so that I can figure out how the damn thing works so I can get data, that would be hella appreciated. Like seriously, I'd give you an REM for free if you could give me a 2.5 liter auto ECU to debug, and I'd even give the ECU back because I don't really have a need for it. But if you could send me one so that I can figure out the data protocol and get that all working, you got yourself one of these for free. Seriously. They are so hard to find, and I would absolutely love to add 2.5 liter auto. So when we change that, and then we go back into gauges, now some of our readings will be different. So on the 2.5 liter, we have the AC clutch as a reading. That's not something available on the 4.0. And the voltage is different. It's only 8 to 16 instead of 0 to 16. And we have millivolts for the oxygen sensor instead of volts, because this is like 0 to like 1.2 volts, so it reads in the millivolt range. And for both models, we have EGR now. So that was the mystery reading that I couldn't figure out. I found out, I just kind of overlooked it. I didn't realize that it was part of two other readings of the same byte. So there's one byte that controls 3 different readings. So that was interesting. So yeah, 2.5 liter support baked in. That is sweet. And while we're here, since we do have so much more room, oh man, the room. So with our options, you can turn everything off. So we got our check engine light, we got our splash screen, we got our Bluetooth, we got a gyroscope, you can reset, you can change the clock, all that. See the software, all that good stuff. In the diagnose mode, I was able to add some stuff back that I had to remove a while ago. So along with all the regular readings that we have on here, I have to update that. Now we have detected ECU. So when we plug it in, it'll tell you the year and the transmission for the 4.0. So for the 4.0, you can see if you have an 8788 or an 8990 ECU. The 8990 are a little better. They give you a little more horsepower, supposedly. And then the second one will tell you if it was meant for an automatic or a manual transmission. On the 2.5 liter, the only thing I can figure out, I think, and I'm not even 100% sure yet, is if the ECU was in an XJ or an MJ, but I need more XJs to confirm that. So that's cool. And we can also read our prom number, so that's cool if you want to see what all the raw numbers are. And on top of that, we also have our mystery values back. So there are a total of 8 values that I have no idea what they do. So, you know, I figure if other people want to take a look and see if maybe they can figure something out. I noticed when I started the engine, this one right here was like counting down, so I'm interested in that. But yeah, that's the mystery bytes, and it tells you what each one is. So like this one's byte 14, 15, 17, 20. This is just what number byte it is in the loop. So yeah, we got some cool business there. But I'm really excited that I added more stuff onto the ECU mode. It's kind of cool, especially since I figured it all out basically on my own. So back over to the list. They all have the same screen. They all got check engine lights. All the latest ones have auto dimming and O2 heater reading. The REM V4 has built-in clock as well. And I also fixed a major contact issue. Okay, so here we have the version 3 hardware and the version 4 hardware. With the clock, the way that it was mounted, there was two things I wanted to address. So the V3s still had some screen glitching, not as bad as the version 2s, because I fixed a bit of a ground issue, but it still does it from time to time, which is obnoxious. I wasn't sure if the light sensor had anything to do with that, so on version 4 I moved it away from any of the data pins. I don't super like the location, because if you put your finger up here, sometimes it dims. I don't know. It'd be nice to, I guess, put it over by the light maybe, but it's going to be hard to squeeze that in there with all the lines running around. It was a tight squeeze to get all this in here, seriously. It took so many revisions to get this thing set up. It's ridiculous. We also had an issue with the clock. So, over here, this little black strip, that is where the clock mounts. Well, the problem is, I didn't realize this because I didn't make like a paper prototype before I ordered the boards, is that a few of the pins would actually stick up, and right here is the backlight. Underneath this tape is, you know, exposed wires that go to the backlight. And the problem is these pins lined up perfectly that the 5-volt line for this clock would accidentally touch against the blue LED backlight. So it's injecting 5 volts directly into the backlight, which is no bueno, because these are only supposed to have like a maximum of like 3.5, 3.6 volts. So some people would, some people noticed that if they pushed on the case or something, like sometimes the screen would glow bright blue. Yeah, if that's ever happened, that's really bad, because if that stays like that for, I don't know, probably longer than a minute or a couple minutes, your blue LED is going to be burned out, and you will no longer have blue as an option. So yeah, my fix was to put some tape on there, and then later, in some of the later models, when I actually found out about the issue, and that the tape wasn't good enough, I started putting hot glue on there. And I've also mentioned to some people that you can take a piece of paper and slide it in there, something thicker, so that it keeps it from contacting. So on V4, I fixed that issue. I actually found out that I could fit it sideways, which was really cool. So now I don't have to trim the pins, I don't have to do more work, which is always good for us, and it still fits in there, surprisingly. Yay. So hopefully that's 2 more issues down. Another interesting thing that I've done is I've added a ground plane, so this probably won't mean much unless you're like a serious circuit board nerd. But if you look at this, notice how like the entire board is basically green, and we have all these vias, those little tiny silver holes. They are all for the ground stuff, all these guys over here. So the entire face of this back part of the board is all the ground plane, and hopefully that makes things less likely to glitch out and less interference problems, because like if you compare over here, you notice how there's a lot of dark space and you can just see the lines. So this entire thing is all ground, so hopefully that fixes things. Hopefully, you know, it's more robust and stuff like that. So yeah, we've come a long way, man, from through-hole components to tiny little itty-bitty stuff. We don't need that stupid upload switch anymore, which is freaking awesome. This teensy thing has 3 different serial UARTs, and even one for USB. So there's a total of 4 separate serial things we can do, which is awesome. Only downfall that, again, I didn't find out until I started testing, herp-de-derp, is there's something interesting with the teensy. It freaks out with lower baud rates. And I actually had to talk to the developer of the teensy board, and he answered my question perfectly. It has something to do with the clock speed and some kind of dividing something or other. So let's look at that real quick. So I posted up a question on the PGRC forum to ask what was going on with this, because like the thing that I noticed is if I started changing the CPU speed, the baud rate would be different. So for instance, this right here, this was the Metro Mini output that we had, and this was the Teensy output that I had. Both of them were set for 500 baud, and you'll obviously notice that this one is correct. It actually reads, this blue line is basically the entire strip, and this one isn't even close. So this was the Teensy set at 500, and it's way off. I was having a hard time figuring it out. Now most of the time, like with the Arduinos, when you type in 500 it'd be like 533, but that's still good enough that all the dots fit where they should. Over here, they're not even close. So yeah, I did some testing, and I compiled at different CPU speeds and found that the slower speeds actually worked. So I was curious what was going on there. And Mr. Paul actually responded with some interesting fun facts. So on Serial 1 and Serial 2, the minimum baud is like 732 because of some kind of math that is gone over right here. So when we compile, if you put 96 in here, divide by these guys, then you can get your number. But something interesting that he mentioned is Serial 3 uses FBus instead of FCPU, and that is half the speed. So what that means is if I use Serial 3 for the AW4, since it's 500, it would work. So yeah, that's interesting. I really wish that I knew that. I wish that there was some kind of like teensy, goober post that tells you all the weird things going on with this, so that you know what you're getting into when you're porting over from a regular Arduino. So I found out that on Serial 3, since it's like half the speed, even if I were to overclock it to 120 megahertz, the minimum baud comes out to like 458. So I could even use it there perfectly. So anyway, what all that means is for our version 4 to work the way it's set up, the TCU goes to Serial 2. That just means I have to compile at 48 megahertz instead of the normal 72 or even overclock 96. So it might be slightly slower, but I don't know. I was checking the time intervals between clock cycle loops, and it wasn't really all that much of a difference. So, But if I do make a 4.1 and decide that I want to change and fix that, I would switch 2 and 3 so that the Bluetooth is running on 2 and the TCU is running on 3. But then we run into other issues with the pins, because Serial 3 shares with SPI. Or no, Serial 2 does. So over here is Serial 2. And the RX was perfect, because I only need the RX line, I didn't need TX. But the chip select is for 10, which kind of sucks. I think that we can change the chip select, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean, you can do software SPI, but I don't know. And this was perfect for Bluetooth, because I'm pretty sure there's TX and RX, so yeah, you can... A bunch of crap. I don't know. Always things to think about. We still have our fused and reverse protection. So here's a good comparison of why the Teensy is friggin' awesome. So on version 1 and 2, we only had a Pro Trinket, which was the regular 328p Atmel, but some of the room was taken up by the bootloader, so it was a little less. So we had 28.6 instead of 32.2. So yeah, when I went to the Metro Mini, there was a little bit more, but not a ton. When we go to the Teensy, we're at 262,000 bytes versus 32. Dude, it's incredible. So with the Teensy compiler, even though it takes more space, so for instance, like the software takes 58,000 bytes, we still got 262,000. I'm only 22% full. That is incredible. Do you realize what I can do with this kind of space? Oh my god, it's great. It's so great. All the multiple serials and the dual reading and the fast speed and oh my god, they're great. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this. It's great to be able to go back to coding and not get stuck worrying about if the code will fit and writing it small. I can just focus on getting it to work and then, making it pretty later. So with the breakout pins, we got our power and our jack and the traces to our Arduino. And I guess let's talk about that. So one of the options is going to be an in-out adapter. So on the side over here, we have 3 ports open with a screw terminal. So if you come in here with a little screwdriver, you can open and close those, so you can just slide a wire in there and make interfacing with this a lot easier. Because before I had like headers in there, and that was like kind of, and then I left the holes open, but it's kind of hard to get to. So the way that this is set up, if you want to read voltages in, so you just want an analog read to read stuff like sensors and things like that, or for instance, like the oil pressure sender, that's something we can do here. So the way that we would do that is we would run a jumper from the oil pressure sender into one of these slots, and then on the board, you see those 3 jumpers, like a left kind of middle, the little tiny square rectangular pads with the cut between them. If you want to read just analog, you would jump that pin. You just put a little solder on there, and that connects this pin directly to the jack. And then you'd come in here and say you want to read the bigger voltage. Well, you come in to this guy and jump these 2, and that jumps the 0 to 18 volt voltage divider. So then what that does is that brings that right to analog 3. So then analog 3 will read whatever voltage is on there. Now say for instance we wanted an output. Say you wanted to try to control fans. That is something we could do on version 3 or version 4 with this new adapter. So I'd put myself a little transistor in there. Take one of these guys and plop it in, so you have yourself a transistor. And we even have spots for flyback diodes, which is good for relays. It helps get rid of the obnoxious inductive spiking when you shut a relay off. So we have 3 slots for transistors and diodes if you want to control things. So it would be ground controlled. So you would put the ground side, like the ground of the coil relay into here, and then what we could do is instead come down and jump one of these bottom ones. So the bottom pin directly connects to the pin. So by jumping one of the ones down here, this is just a direct connection from the pin to there. So if you were to tell this, say we're using A10 or whatever, or what we're using A3. So you tell pin A3 to go high, so that would send 3.3 volts through this pin, and it would go into the jack, and it would go to the transistor. So the transistor would turn on, and the transistor would close, so now we have a path from this line to ground. So that would ground your relay, and you could turn a fan on. So the cool thing is, I could look at the temperature and say if the temperature is this, then ground the relay and turn the fan on. So that is something you could do with this. You can control control relays in other ways too, if you want to turn other stuff on, or the possibilities are endless. So if you got ideas or custom stuff, then ask and we can figure something out. So I've made these very open source, so you can fiddle with them and do whatever you want. So if you like to mod stuff, these are going to be great for you. Plenty of room for code too, so we're not stuck in what can we delete to fit new. With the serial out, we can since USB is separate from the other guys, you can select whatever baud you want. So if you want 9600 or 115,200, stuff like that, you can select whatever you want to send stuff back to a computer, and that will be cool for if you want to data log to Renix com. So let me show you that. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, there was a Russian program that was written quite a few years ago to interface with Renix. So their solution was an RS-232 connection. So they would connect the data port directly to the computer through an actual COM port. and then you can record your data on this really awesome graph. So if we check the data, so this is what it looks like. So you have, all your different stuff going on here, all your, everything, every single reading that you got, all your sensors, just everything is on here and graphed, which would be friggin' sweet. And then if you come down here at the bottom, you can also see what the actual numbers are. So you got the voltage and the temperature and, all that stuff. And down here is the actual raw frame dealio here. So yeah, that's something cool. The only issue with this, and I'm going to see if the developer is willing to work with me at all, if he still is interested in the messing with this program. It'd be cool to see this in real time. This is only the playback. When you do the real time, there's only like 6 readings, and it's not all that exciting. So I don't know. But this is an option that we can do, is messing with Renix comms, so you can see all the crap going on. And this brings me to the data logging issue that I have. So on this SD card, we could record all of our data logging. So you can record either, I guess, if you wanted certain readings only. So if you only wanted like RPM and temperature or something like that, you could do just that. Or you could record all of them. I also want to add a timestamp in there so you can kind of see when the heck things were happening. But my hardest thing to overcome is, how are you going to read the data? Like, what are you going to do with it? My best solution right now is to just dump it into Excel and graph it, but that's kind of dumb. It'd be really cool to get the Renix com to work, but right now my only solution, the file format that it uses to save the data, is confusing as all hell. So I don't know how to. I'm not a very good programmer in that area yet. So my best solution is you could read back the data on the SD card and dump it onto the computer through the COM port, and then record it in real time and save it, and then you could play it back, which is kind of bootleg, but you could still use the software if you wanted to. So if you got a good program for reading data log stuff, something like this Renix.com that has live graphs and stuff like that, let me know, because I'm really curious what you would do with your data logging data. Because if you tell me what you need, I might be able to actually get it to work. So if you got a program you like that's sort of kind of open source and I can copy their file format, then I would love to integrate into something like that. Because live data on a computer would be friggin' sweet. So yeah, if you got ideas, suggestions, questions about the SD card data logging, please let me know. Alright, next on the list we have our voltage regulator. So this brings us to an interesting thing: heat. I am getting to the thermal maximum capacity of these devices. So these little Arduinos aren't all that great when it comes to heat. They're not very efficient. They have little tiny itty bitty voltage regulators that, they're barely anything. They're just little tiny crumbs. And when they gotta turn, 15 volts into 5 volts, that's a lot of heat. It doesn't sound like much, but having one of those little tiny trips trying to burn off a watt of energy, yeah, good luck. So this is a thermal image of the Metro Mini on the clock. I was having overheating issues. People were noticing that they were cutting out, and they'd boot like crazy, like they'd keep rebooting, because the voltage regulator was getting so hot it was actually shutting down the sketch, and then it would cool down, and then it would start back up, and the cycle continues. So with the clock over here, the clock was drawing too much power for the whole system to work. So my fix for that was an external voltage regulator, and I'll show you why that was the fix. So if we check out more of our pictures, that was the onboard. That is 262 degrees. I'm pretty sure that's the thermal limit, because it doesn't go any higher than that. Once it hits that, it starts to freak out and dim and reset and all kinds of crap. So I had 2 different voltage regulators from Adafruit. One was a tiny one that was basically like transistor sized. It was an L4931 5.0, so 5 volts. So that one was good up to 250 milliamps. Oh, and by the way, I should mention, the onboard regulators are good up to 150 milliamps. That's what they claim. Well, I was only drawing with the clock. With the extra thing on there and all up to max. The max I could get this to draw was 96 milliamps. So it's not like I'm over the milliamp range. They're just not rated properly. When you're at like close to the maximum voltage, the maximum milliamp that they can do is, yeah, it's not that great. So you really want to look at watts burned and stuff like that to figure out the temperature and things like that. So yeah, this one's a little better at 216, but we could do better. So here's the big monster over here. This brings it down to 172, which is awesome. That gives us enough safety range that, you know, it won't reset and it'll actually work. So that's what that big monster is. And here is the version 4. So that's the onboard external regulator. So that's this little chip right here. This big guy. Yeah, that's much more suited for the job. So that only gets up to like 150. So that it handles the heat a lot better. And the nice thing is, this is a two-stage thing. So we have a 5-volt rail and a 3.3 volt rail. So the Teensy brings it down to 3.3 for its stuff. So if you notice, if we come over here, we have both now. So now we got 5 volt, 3.3, and 12. And the ground is on the side. So if you got 3.3 devices, we can do that. You got 5 volt, we can also do that. So that's cool. And yeah, so the clocks had to be modified for that to work. And just to show it off, I put this thing, I put the new voltage regulator in the hot Jeep in the sun. It's probably like 130 degrees. I closed all the doors, so it was basically like an oven in there. I had everything set to max, and I had this set in direct sunlight, so it was like the best stress test I could possibly think of, and I sat there for like 10 minutes. And I came back, and that was the highest temperature that I could read, was 219. So we are definitely in the clear. I don't think we'll have any overheating issues with that big monster. But yeah, in the future, I'm going to have to look into a buck converter, DC to DC, is switching power supply, because they don't create any heat. They're a little more complicated to work with, and I want to make sure that the rails aren't bouncing around and stuff like that. So yeah, it's time to do some more learning, I guess. But yeah, that's we're basically hitting a thermal limit here. So down at the bottom, so you can see the old version claimed it was a, come here motherfucker, where you at? The old version claimed that they were good up to 16 volts and 150 milliamps, but you kind of want to look at a wattage. So the new one I have now is good up to 25 volts and 500 milliamps. So yeah. And for this, Bluetooth, micro SD, gyroscope, they're all optional. When I redesign the boards and get the footprints right, hopefully the SD slots will just be built in. So yeah, that's going on. So that brings us on to the clock. The V3s have been going kind of okay. Like I said, the external regulator, that was kind of a kick in the dick. So hopefully we got that figured out. I've also got some updates to turn the clock off so people can check it out. But here's what they look like, and I'll bring these on screen. Biggest issue was that they don't quite fit center. The first one fit pretty well, but a lot of the other guys, theirs is cocked to the left and down a little bit, so I got to readjust how the thing mounts. So yeah, we need to fix that. So it turns out that my slots aren't perfectly centered. They're off just a little bit, so I'm going to make sure to fix the file so that hopefully the damn thing fits in there. And my second issue, I'm not sure what I actually talked about in video. A lot of this stuff I only talk on Facebook. But I found out that the board is too long on this side. The side of the dash actually cuts off on that line right there. I don't know if you can see that line right here. But yeah, the problem was the jack was actually hitting the dash, and I couldn't get the board to fit. So even after fiddly farting around with the reverse jacks and fighting with myself to try to find ones that actually fit, because they're all freaking different, it didn't fit anyway. So yeah, that was great. That was a real great find right there. So let me just show you that crap. Yeah, so here was the issue. I didn't realize that because the clocks actually overlap the dash, but they have cutouts for a reason. So yeah, I had a jack fitment issue, so I had to hardwire them, which is what this obnoxious crap is all about. So if we look at a unit that fits in here, you notice there's a big cutout on the side there. so that it fits in the dash. So yeah, that was a bit of an oversight. I learned a hell of a lot with these prototypes, because so much went wrong with them. Oh my god. So yeah, they're getting there. They look pretty sweet, and they seem to be working for the most part. There's just a few little bugs that I need to clean up. So one of the things that I was trying to figure out with the clocks was how to make the screens look clear and pretty. So if you notice, this is what they look like with the with this filter on there. They look really clean, really crisp. You can see them in the daytime. Without those, they look like absolute crap. So I bought a bunch of different stuff from a place called ePlastic. They have acrylic sheets. This was the best thing I could find for a halfway decent price that I could get. I kind of wanted more of a gel thing, because there was a gel solution that I found on DigiKey. But they were also diffused a little bit, and they weren't that clean. They were also really dark. The green is not very bright. So when I use this little diffused sheet looking thing, they're not as crisp. Now this is a little unfair because of how far away it is, but you can see the difference in crispness. That's really, sharp, and this is kind of blurred a little bit. So the cool thing with the acrylic is it's completely transparent, so it doesn't mess with that. And there was different shades. So we have like gray, and we have bronze, and all kinds of different stuff like that. And yeah, that's all on the Facebook page as well. Seriously, if you haven't been on there and you are interested in this stuff at all, check out the Facebook page. Dude, you can nerd out like nobody's business. It's unreal, the stuff I post. You should really check it out if you're interested in that stuff, even in the slightest. So yeah, this is what all the filters look like. So you can see no filter, hashtag no filter, and all the different colors. So you can see how they get dimmer and all that, and that kind of business. It makes them so much more readable, because if you look at this, you can barely see what's going on because the contrast isn't there. So what these things do is they add contrast and they make them look all pretty. Now the red is a lot brighter, so we can get away with a darker filter if we wanted to. But I'd really like to only order one, so that because I have to order like a big sheet of those. So for $50 I can get like a billion of those little things. But yeah, I'd like to keep it to one color. So anyway, we got that figured out too. Now this is like 1/8 inch. It's way too thick for what I want. I was hoping for something really thin. Now they have 60 thou sheets, so if I order a big thing, then I'll order them in 60 thou. This was just the sample set that I was sitting there and cutting and scoring and stuff like that. So yeah. So that's the clocks. So yeah, one last thing. I know, this video is probably like a freaking hour long. I'm sorry. I got a lot to talk about. So there's one more thing. I don't like to show custom projects until I'm done. And sometimes I just don't like to show them because then people want the stuff. But I figure, hey, I'll show you what's out there. So there was somebody that wanted an OLED display. So this right here is a Mondo OLED graphic display. And what graphic means is that I can do whatever I want. I can control every single pixel on this mother and change it however I need. So the only thing that I don't like about OLED is that they do this. I don't know if you can see that, but like they kind of they vibrate. They flicker. So if you've ever been in class, back when you're however old ago, you look at CRT monitors and you move your face really fast, and you can kind of see them like blur, kind of. They stutter and flicker. That's what these do. So I don't know if that's going to be annoying in a bouncy Jeep, but yeah, that's a thing that can be done. But his idea was to have them vertical, and he's going to do some custom work to mount this in his clock panel. So he's going to cut one up and do all the work for him. I said I could make him a case, but he said he'd rather do it on his own, and that's fine because that's less work for me. So I'll show you what this looks like when it's rotated. So this was this is what he settled on, was to have it vertical like this in portrait mode, so we can stack them and do whatever. And the cool thing is, like, this is font size 1, so if you wanted, you could probably display quite a lot on there in the lower font size, but his eyes are bad, so he wanted some big gauges. And that's fine, because this kind of makes it easier for me to port over, so we still only have 4 readings. So hopefully it makes things easy to port. The portrait mode is going to make it a little difficult for some menus that are long, but yeah, I figured I'd show you what that looks like. So yeah, that's got hella good contrast and all that, but the flickering, man, that drives me nuts. OLEDs. I was really hoping for OLED to be sweet, because this was an OLED, that's an OLED, but they all have that stupid flicker. I don't know, a lot of people don't notice that, but I notice things like that, and it bugs the shit out of me. So yeah, that's a thing. I don't know, it could be a thing in the future. The problem is these are expensive. This is a $50 screen compared to the ones I have now, which I think are like 12 or 15. So that's going to be a big price increase if you're looking into like a mega version like that. So yeah, but this is a lot easier to interface than the other screen I had. This guy, it's an LCD, so it doesn't do the flickery thing like the OLEDs do, but contrast isn't as good, I don't think. Oh, it's a pain in the ass to interface with this thing, but yeah, it's RGB, so you could change the color, so we could stick to that at least. Anyway, so okay. Oh, that's it for now. Holy crap. So much. If you want to run your own business and make your own product, it's not easy. It's a lot of work, man. But it's worth it. This stuff is cool. I'm not gonna lie. It's a lot of fun figuring this out. So yeah, don't think this is a chore. I mean, sometimes it takes a lot of brain power to figure it out, but this stuff is fun. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it.